Did you know that in at least 39 out of 50 states, men are being forced to pay child support on children that are not biologically theirs, even with DNA tests?
What? What the f?
All right, let me explain because this is insane. Wife cheats, she gets pregnant, she has a baby, and at some point, divorce happens. In 39 states, he is 100% paying for that child as if it's his own, even if a DNA test is done and proves that he is not the biological father. So stick with me on this video and I'll walk you through it. Today, I'm going to unravel for you the dark truth about paternity fraud. Before I get started, this topic is an important one, yet it's controversial. So the algorithms are not going to be friendly to me. This is where I need your help. If you find this content useful, please share it, subscribe, and like the video. And don't forget to click the link and join my free community. It's a place where we can have real discussions without the worry about censorship or social consequences. And I can also provide you some helpful advice there and tips to level up your life with your relationships and your mindset, inner game, and success in general. And I can do that for you there beyond what I can do here on YouTube. So I'd like to start off with a little positive story of my own. I have a son from a previous relationship that I adopted. My ex and I chose to adopt a child who was in need, and I've been a dad to that kid, and I've been the only dad he's ever known. Look, I love my son, and becoming a dad was one of the best decisions that I could have made. And no, he's not biologically mine, but that is okay. I chose to take on that role as father voluntarily, and it was a great decision, and it's one that I'm proud of. But here's the thing. I wasn't lied to. I wasn't duped into this decision. Now imagine this. You're with a woman that you are in love with. She's the love of your life. And then she sits you down to have that conversation to tell you, I'm pregnant. And you're filled with a bunch of emotions, maybe mixed emotions at first, but eventually as that baby bump grows inside of her, you're getting more and more excited at this idea of being a father, having your part of you entering into the next generation. And so you're prepping, you're getting the room ready, you're getting ready to have the son or daughter. And then she has the baby and you hold that baby for the first time in the delivery room. Most men will cry at this experience and have tears well up because of the bond that he'll develop towards this baby, believing that this baby is his. And then imagine that you raise that kid for the first couple years and you watch him grow, go through crawling to walking to first words, spending late nights up as when he's a baby, taking shifts with the wife, taking care of him, making sure that he can get to sleep and reading him stories and going places and watching him develop. Imagine that you do all that. And then before the kids, let's say 3 years old, you find out that your wife has been cheating on you. And so you start doing some research and figuring it out. And she's been, of course, not been a good wife to you. And that's been declining over time. And you always thought maybe it was just the stress of being a mother. You always thought it was some sort of, maybe you're not doing enough. Maybe you're not helping enough. Maybe you don't make enough money. Maybe you watch some on the internet, you don't think you're high enough SMV, right? Whatever nonsense. And she's not treating you very well. The sex has gone down. She's checked out of this relationship. And no matter what you could do to change it, it's not changing. And the reason why is because she's banging another dude, right? And so she's banging this dude and nothing's going to change. In fact, she wants the divorce now too. And so you go through the divorce proceedings and it occurs to you as you're going through these proceedings and as more information comes out, man, you know what? A lot of things aren't adding up. And this kid doesn't look exactly like me. Like I'm not really sure what's going on here. And I don't think this is the first time she's cheated, despite the lies that she tells me. And so you start doing a little digging and you decide to do a DNA test. And then you find out that this child is not your child. Divorce has been finalized or is being finalized, and she's taking child support. Took half your business. She had half your business. In order to pay that off, you had to give her the house, and you're paying her for her lifestyle, and you're paying for a child, and you're cut in half financially, and you're struggling a bit because you're supporting a whole other lifestyle while she's sleeping with somebody else. And you find out that this kid is not biologically yours, and you're being held hostage financially, emotionally, and logistically to a son or daughter that is not your son or daughter. You know what happens in 39 states? You have to continue to take care of that kid, or at least pay for the kid by law. That DNA test does nothing for you. The DNA test doesn't matter in 39 states. It's been determined. You've acted like the father. You signed the birth certificate like you were the father because you thought you were the father. She's been cheating. She cucked you, and she got away with it. And there's no penalty. In fact, it's worse because not only is there no penalty, but she gets awards and prizes for cucking you. She gets dicked down by other guys. She gets to do whatever she wants, and she gets her lifestyle paid for, and she gets to hold you hostage for taking care of this kid, whether it's paying for the kid or even, the kid go to your place so she can go out and do whatever she wants. She gets rewarded for cheating and for cucking. That is our current system today. Now, I know this sounds crazy because it is crazy, but that is a reality, the sad reality that we live in 2024. And women wonder, why don't men want to get married today? How come men don't want to get married? Paternity fraud is a harsh reality that many men unwittingly find themselves in. And when a mother falsely identifies a man as the biological father of her child for financial gain or for whatever reasons, the repercussions of that level of deception are far reaching and can be devastating to that man. And not just the man, though, not just to you, but to the child and to the family and to the extended family. And she gets no penalty or repercussions for her actions. You get all of the penalty. The emotional trauma experienced by men who discover that they are the victims of paternity fraud is profound. It leads to men taking themselves out of the gene pool. The reason why they will say the rates of ending your life, I don't want to say the word on YouTube, but the rates of ending your life are high amongst men who are divorced and past the age of 40. And these are some of the reasons why. The man will go through feelings of betrayal, feelings of guilt and shame, not being enough, anger, loss of trust, and not just loss of trust from her, but loss of trust for relationships and women as a whole. So, a lot of these people wonder why red pill guys are so negative against women, or manosphere guys, or, whatever fringe group, the incel crowd or something like that. I'm not confused. I'm not negative against women, okay? But I'm not confused as to why men feel this way. I know why. All right. Part of what I do in my coaching groups is to help pull you out of that, because that mindset is something you have to actually level up from. But that's another conversation. Besides the emotional trauma that man goes through, he's put into financial enslavement. It's a form of financial slavery. Okay. His mistake was not being aware enough to know that he's being lied to, but he was lied to. She committed fraud. This is not a scenario where he made a bunch of bad decisions and it put him here, so we should blame the guy. She committed fraud. She lied. And he gets all the repercussions. She gets all the prizes. Now, I know a lot of you guys are watching this and you're thinking, well, okay, but how often does this really happen? It can't be, we don't hear about it in the media. Like, it can't be true. We hear all about, we hear my body, my choice all over the campaign trail right now with a presidential election coming up. We hear that, but we don't hear about this. So this must not be a real issue. This must be something that just doesn't happen very often. And I'm wasting my breath in this video telling you about something that is not very common. That's probably what many of you are probably thinking, right? And I would have thought this too if I didn't look it up myself, to be honest. And I coach men. I coach men all the time and help men with divorces and healing from breakups and all this stuff. And I had to look all this stuff up to find out the truth. And I'm appalled at it. Right. So it makes sense for you not to believe me, but I got news for you. It's the media only presents to you the things that you want to hear. And in fact, this is so controversial that I'm almost certain that this video is not going to get much traction. All right. Unless a grassroots effort from you guys wanting to get the information out there, you spread this to others, the algorithms are not going to help me. I promise you. They don't want you to hear this information. It's not fitting with narratives that are out there that are very identity politic driven. It's just not. But you guys need to wake the fuck up. I'm not a political person. I'm not a political person and I'm not getting involved in that stuff. It's not what my channel is about. But Kamala Harris right now is running around blaming Trump for abortion rights that were lost in certain states when Roe v. Wade was overturned, which happened, by the way, during her administration. And they did nothing to combat it during her administration. But in 2022, it happened. Abortion became a states' rights issue. And now that is a major component for the campaign trail to get women ignited to vote for her and vote against Trump, right? Because my body, my choice. And that is like a sole issue for many women this election. Yet, as a man, your body, your resources, and your labor are not your choice in most states here in the United States and in many parts of the world for my friends who are watching from different parts of the world. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody. When this happens, guys think, well, it's just a fluke. Well, this just happened to you. This doesn't happen to many people. How often could this be happening? Well, here's some data for you. We know that about between 25% and 40%, depending on the testing and the target group, the sample size that they use, 25 to 40% of males seeking a DNA test find out that they're not the father of the child in question. That is a fact. All right. Now, that does not mean, to clear something up, all right, that doesn't mean that 25 to 40% of babies out there came from cheating women, okay? Because this is data where the test sample is just men who seek out the tests. So there's already a concern, or, not everybody gets a DNA test, right? So there's already a thought or concern about this when the test was being sought after. And so that's going to make those numbers be a bit higher. So because most people aren't getting DNA tests on their children, and because most people lie about this kind of stuff in research, we don't have the exact numbers of how many women are cheating on their men to have babies, but we do have multiple studies with multiple test samples. And when we reasonably look at multiple studies with multiple test samples, what we find is around 10%. Hey, sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 15, but the number that keeps coming up is 10%, right? So we can just look at, without having more information, that 10% of kids are born because the wife slept with somebody else. Or the mom will say slept with somebody else, because not everybody's married, right, when they have kids. So 10% of kids are being raised by a dad that they think is biologically theirs, who's not. That's what we're looking at, probably according to the data, unless something else different comes out. Now, let's think about that impact for a second. So you go visit a kindergarten classroom, and that's comprised of, let's say, 25-year-old kids. You can count on, regardless of demographics, all right? Well, I won't say regardless of demographics because I don't have that data to know. But just say 20 kids, 2 have been conceived by a man who isn't identified as the father. And most of those biological fathers, they don't know. All right, 2 of them. Now, let's take that a little further. Let's say you got an elementary school with 400 kids, and you look out in that gymnasium, right, at that assembly with a sea of people, a sea of 400 kids. Now, take looking out into the bleachers before that assembly, count 40 kids. Okay, that's your number. That's how many kids were conceived because wife slept with a neighbor, an ex-boyfriend, or a guy at work or whatever. 40 of them out of 400. All right. Multiply that by elementary schools all around the world. Right. What do you end up with? A lot of kids, right? A lot of kids from all these different states whose DNA do not match the father. And look at the divorce rates, right? There's a lot of dads out there paying for kids that aren't their kids. And you know what? I'm okay with that if the guy says that that's what he wants to do. Sometimes, let's say he thinks he's the dad. He spends 3-4 years of his life taking care of the kid, finds out, no, you know what? She cheated. That's a personal issue, man. And my heart goes out. I've had those guys in consults. I've had that happen to friends of mine. Heart goes out to those guys. And a lot of those guys just choose to still be dad because they love the kid. They don't want to impact the kid's life. As somebody who adopted his son, although I wasn't duped into it, right? I adopted him from foster care, but I understand that decision. I understand that bond, even though the kid isn't biologically yours. And I don't fault those guys one bit. But there's no penalty to the woman. That's first thing, especially on divorce. I mean, she divorces, she walks away with prizes. She walks away with that guy's money. And that guy could biologically choose not to pay, it's not biologically mine. I'm not going through the state to pay for child support, but I'll take half custody of the kid. I'll pay for the kid's school clothes and medical care and stuff. He could volunteer on his own accord to be a father if he wanted to, if he had that choice. The state takes away that choice from him, and the woman takes away that choice from him. Now, if the woman were to say, you know what, I know who the dad is, and I'm going to seek out a DNA test from that guy to make him responsible for this, and not saddle my ex-husband with it because I know it's wrong. If she were to make that decision, sure. But the guy is a prisoner to that decision. How many women make that choice? They don't. By and large, most of the time they don't. Most women walk away with money and prizes. They fuck the new boyfriend in the house that she had with her ex-husband, and they have a great old time getting a monthly check from that dude who's paying for a kid who's not his. So let's cut the bullshit, okay? Let's stop lying to ourselves. Let's stop acting like people don't cheat on each other in general. A high percentage of people, in my opinion, a high percentage of people do that in their relationships. And with that, let's stop tricking ourselves into believing that women aren't banging side dudes, right? And that they're not banging side dudes during ovulation. A percentage of women absolutely are. Let's stop pretending that they're protecting themselves when they do this. Let's stop pretending that they're not getting pregnant for the guy that she's hot for when her desire for a husband goes away after a few years, and that she's, looking at the consequences and going, I'm just not going to say anything about it. And then that guy gets to thinking he's the dad, and then she knows he probably isn't. And she becomes more and more disconnected from this guy, resenting the husband because the guy she was banging doesn't want the responsibility. He went off to someplace else, and she can't. Now she feels like she's trapped, and she resents husband more. And then finally just looks at the numbers and goes, well, shit, I can get divorced here and I will get all the money. And the attorney says, yeah, you know what? Spend some of that money on me, and I'll teach you how to get everything in this divorce, and that she makes that choice because this guy's a piece of shit, that she married, and he's this, he's that. Maybe he's abusive. Maybe he's not very nice to her. All the things that he probably isn't. Okay. But things that she is saying he is in her own mind. And she's built him up to be a bad guy because she lost that neurochemical attachment. And that's something that I train you guys on, is to maintain the neurochemical attachment and to maintain frame. Also, not to be in these situations to begin with, but that's a whole nother thing. And any girl who loses the neurochemical attachment, Rafault's law, she has no reason for that relationship anymore. She can only derive whatever benefits she can. And if the benefits aren't the person, it's going to be his resources. Absolutely, women are cucking men and taking their resources and forcing men into taking care of children that aren't biologically theirs. It's absolutely happening at a higher percentage and a higher scale. We can say around 10% than what the world wants to talk about. Instead, we're talking about my body, my choice, which, hey, you know what? I'm not even jumping into that argument. I don't necessarily want the government telling a woman what to do with her body, even though I do think it's killing a kid. So it's kind of in a rock and a hard place for me. I'm not really sure where to go with that. And this is not a political channel or anything like that. Right. So I kind of understand it. But at the same time, how come they're not decrying the lack of choice that men have? That's where my give a shit goes away for all of these women decrying that their rights have been taken away, because most of those women will happily take your rights away as a man, happily. All right. And I'll tell you how to prevent that at the end of the video. Besides, how can you have healthy relationships with healthy women who wouldn't do this to you, and also you make sure of it? Right. Yeah, it's both. It's picking women who probably wouldn't do this to you, but then also not giving them the avenues to be able to do that. It's both things you have to have in play. I will tell you all about that at the end. All right, let's go through the list. All right, now caveat here is I am not an attorney. Okay. So if you're in this circumstance, and also laws change all the time. So if you're in this circumstance, I want you to consult with an attorney in your state. If you're looking at getting married, you need to be doing a prenup with an attorney, right? If you're looking at divorce, you need to be talking to an attorney. When guys come to me to coach them through the divorce process and the breakup process, part of that process is getting a hold of a good attorney. All right. So hopefully I've said that enough times. All right. So that I'm not the attorney here, but this is just looking things up. And here's the interesting thing about this information, right? There's not like some central database, at least not one that I could find off of Google, that lists this stuff. You have to look for it because this is information that the state definitely doesn't want you to have. This is information that is being suppressed to you as a man. And when I looked at some of the controversy, believe it or not, there's controversy over the use of DNA testing. When DNA testing became more reliable, there was this controversy of, well, this creates now a problem for who's going to financially take care of the kid when DNA results find out that biologically dad's not dad, right? And I found that really amazing that in multiple places that was the argument you would find. Just goes to show how very anti-men and anti-masculinity the world we live in is today. Because if nobody says, well, she made choices, she can figure out how to pay for the kid. No, in fact, we're gonna figure out state programs and shelters and all kinds of things to give her support. Where's all that stuff for men? Now, granted, men can get on state assistance and all those things, but that's not there. If a man stops paying child support or doesn't participate with a friend of court, he's going to jail, right? He's going to jail. Nobody asks, how's the man going to pay for it? Nobody asks that question, but they all will ask that question when it comes to a woman, doesn't it? So, I just want to enlighten you about this because there's a lot of narratives out there that talk about male privilege and privilege this. Women, and particularly white women in the United States, are the most privileged class in the universe. They get all the prizes, they get all the rewards, and they get rewarded for bad behavior. And it's you guys, many of you guys, who reward the bad behavior as well. Nobody wants to tell them.
And no one corrects them because they want to them.
They either want to bang them or they want to appease to mommy, right? And they want to appeal to female sensibilities because it makes them feel better because they all want mommy. And that's most men out there. They're not setting boundaries, they're not setting standards. And that's, of course, a problem in their own life. But then it shows up when it comes to public policy and the social environment, unfortunately. All right. And then we end up with situations. Here are the 11 states listed here that, as of Google searching each and every individual state, because there was no central database, this is what I've come up with. These states: Alabama, Alaska, Hawaii, Indiana, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Missouri, Nevada, New Jersey, Utah, and Wisconsin will protect men with a DNA test. So in these states, they will uphold the DNA test if a guy is divorcing, is looking at child support, and he is facing, maybe this kid isn't my child. He can get a DNA test done. He can have the court mandate a DNA test is done to prove paternity. And if that DNA test proves that he's not the father, then he does not have to volunteer to take care of that kid or pay for the child. That dad now has a choice. Okay. So that's all 11 states. Now let's look at the rest of them. In these states, 29 states, they do not protect, and I'll go over the whole list. They do not protect married men with DNA evidence. And I'm specifying married for a reason. If people aren't married, she can say, well, he's the father. Okay. Now they have to prove paternity. If he contests that, well, wait a second, she's saying I'm the dad, I don't believe it, I want a DNA test, once this kid comes out or beforehand. They can do the DNA test, and if they're not married and the DNA test says, okay, you're not the father, he's not on the hook for child support if they're not married. That's how that works. You can't just say he's dad and then that's it, at least anywhere in the United States. I don't know about it the whole world, right? But in the United States, you can't just claim somebody's the father with no proof whatsoever. So there's the DNA test done if there's no marriage, if he wants it. Now, here's the thing. If the guy believes her, doesn't get a DNA test done, and just behaves as if he's the father for even a short period of time, might only be 6 months in a lot of cases, he's now the father. If he signed his name to the birth certificate, if his name went on the birth cert as the father, he's now the father. And in these states, DNA tests will not protect him. So even if he's not married, if he behaves as if he's the father and she claims it, or he is on the birth certificate as a father and it's not contested in the beginning, they are not going to reverse that decision if a DNA test proves that he's no longer the dad. He's stuck. And guess what? If married, the presumption is that you are the legal father. There's different ways of the court looks at paternity. And these states look at biological paternity and legal paternity as different things. I mean, they all do. And legal paternity in all of these states is what happens when she has a baby out of her vagina and you're married to it. Okay. So if you're married to her and a baby comes out of her vagina, you're the dad, even if you're a white guy and the baby comes out black. All right. Or you're a black guy and the baby comes out Chinese. All right. You're the father, according to these states. And if she divorces you, you're paying for it. You have all the responsibilities of dad just because you're married to her. All right. They do not protect your rights due to DNA. That's your California, of course, right? Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, my state of Michigan. Boy, oh boy. Minnesota, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio. I put other notes here. I'll get to that. Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota. I just came across in those searching something called the 300-day rule, 300-day rule. So in these states, in a lot of these states, right? And this is a lot of these states, not just the one, okay? The 300-day rule. What is that? That means that in up to 300 days, if she has a baby and you were married to her, even up to 300 days after the divorce is finalized, it's your baby. You're paying child support. If she doesn't volunteer another father and prove paternity from another father, which she does not have to do, okay, your daddy. She could have banged, so-and-so at the convention or whatever, your dad now. It's going to be a lot to prove that you're not. That these states will not uphold the DNA test saying that you're not the father. And that's up to 300 days. So let's play this all out. Most divorces aren't clean, are they? So let's say that they break up, they're separated, and there's stuff and things involved, maybe other children. They're going through the process of divorce. I mean, if there's other children, in most states, they make you wait a waiting period of 6 months or sometimes longer. So you're stuck in limbo. You're not divorced. You're separated. She's out banging other dudes and doing whatever. And then you finally you think you're free and the divorce gets finalized. You haven't had sex with her in a couple of years. You've been sexless marriaged into a separation, right? And finally divorce happens and that's it. One of the guys she's banging knocked her up. She has that baby before 300 days pass. She comes after you for child support. You can't do anything about it. You're assumed the father on that birth certificate because you were married to her. And even though the divorce is finalized up to 300 days, you're assumed the father. And if no other father is identified, that DNA test will do nothing for you in these states. You are paying for it. Isn't that nice? That's nice, right? My body, my choice. What? My body, my resources, my life, my choice. Or not so much your choice, right? Not so much your choice if you're a man. Now let's look at the rest of these. Oh, there were more after South Dakota. Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Oh, and I should mention, so something called estoppel, which means that's you acted like the father. In other words, you babysat, you changed a diaper or something. You were a paternal figure in this kid's life in any way, shape, or form. All mom has to do is say, well, he's been, that figure in this kid's life. And that's what overrides the DNA test in many of these states. And some of the states I'll get to. All right. They call it in Vermont de facto parent. There's terms for it. Estoppel means they know you're not the biological father, but you're paying child support anyway because you acted like a father, because you were duped and thought, you thought you were dad, or you're just being a nice guy and taking care of the kid. And you always were concerned and you don't want to pay child support. Too bad you're paying for it now. You did the kind thing and treated this child who wasn't yours like your child for a little bit. And you never thought that through. Now you're paying child support. That's estoppel, or that's de facto parent. They have words for it in legal language in some of these states, and they're a little bit different depending on the state. And then let's get to the rest of these, which will add up to 39 states total. These states, they don't protect your rights with DNA testing either. However, you can fight it in some senses. There are some loopholes here. Okay, so most of these, it's best interest. What that means is the court's going to determine what's in best interest of the child. And that's what you always have to remember in this, is your rights do not supersede the rights of the child, or in most of these states, even if you're not biologically the parent, what's best for the child and the child's rights, okay, are going to supersede yours in every case, really. And that's not always a bad thing, depending on what we're looking at. But in this case, obviously it is. And so they're going to look at in Arkansas and in Florida and in Texas, Mississippi, and Washington. They're going to look at what's in the best interest of the child. And so if there's no other dad around, let's say you make money, okay, and she doesn't make money, and there's no other dad around, and you got paternity frauded, she committed paternity fraud, biologically it's not yours. Guess what? Those states, they're saying you're the legal father and you will pay for that kid. That is how that will work. That's what best interest of the child means. All right. That's the way it is in Arkansas and Florida. That's the way it is in Mississippi. Is like weird because it's best interest, but then there's like, they said conditions, and I didn't dig too far deep into it. Again, I'm not an attorney, so Mississippi, it's a little more complicated. Washington's unclear. Washington State is unclear as well. Although best interest of the child was the thing. All right. So those are all best interest. Now, in some cases, best interest is the thing in all of these cases, really. They call it psychological parent. So if she can show that you acted like a parent in any way, shape, or form. And sometimes, by the way, this goes back, even if they know, and you know, and everybody knows you're not biologically the parent. So for those of you guys in some of these states, you want to go hook up with a single mom and then have her move in with you and have her kid move in with you, and you live for a period of time. There are those cases, and I'm not the attorney in those states and I'm not an attorney at all to know the particulars, but there are conditions and cases where you can be saddled with child support for that child, even though you clearly were not the biological parent, but you brought the mom and brought the kid in, and they're going to say you're the psychological parent, or they're going to say that you're the de facto parent, or by estoppel, you are paying child support now. So some of these states, single mommies can go find a nice rich man to become the child support payer out in the situation. Isn't that nice? It's nice, right? So Illinois and Arizona, it's signed paternity. So that means that, okay, you think the kid's yours, you sign the birth certificate, sign the paternity on the birth certificate. Oh, 6 months later, you find out she cheated and she's trying to divorce you so she can run off with somebody else. Guess what? You signed it. They're upholding that. They're upholding that. And your DNA test won't matter in Illinois. It won't matter in Arizona. Okay. So that's in a lot of these places that are like that too. They use that signed paternity, even though you were signing under fraudulent claims, right? You were fraudulently duped into signing this paperwork. The state will hold you to it and make you pay. Okay. Isn't that wonderful though? That's wonderful. It makes you want to get married, doesn't it? I wonder why guys don't get married. 2024. All right. And then there's two states in particular were mentioned, Maine and Oklahoma, where they're kind of on the fringe because you can contest with the DNA testing, but you have a time limit, and that time limit's before the child's 2. Okay. So like if you thought the child was yours or weren't sure, maybe you weren't sure, didn't do anything about it. You're trying to be the good man, take care of this kid and take care of this wife who's maybe ungrateful and doesn't care about you. And then, divorce is happening and the kid's 3 years old. If you didn't do anything about it by then, your DNA test won't matter. You could have been trying, and this is where a lot of women will bide their time. Women know the system, dudes. They do. A lot of women know the system. All right. And so they'll bide their time. They'll play the game. They'll touch your pee-pee once a month just to keep you going. And they'll wait that 2-year mark. And then they'll exit and you're paying for it. Don't think that there aren't women out there that they strategize. In fact, I would say all women are very aware to some degree strategizing. Almost all. They check on this stuff. It's not because women are bad, it's just they're more risk averse. Where you dumb guys don't look into any of it. You're like, it'll be great. You know, you guys are, it'll be great. I'm going for the goal. She's the one, man. Like, she's greatest. We haven't had sex in 6 months, but she's a wonderful woman. And maybe I'm not taking enough stress away from her. You know what I mean? She's just busy being a mom, man. Like, you know, you guys get idealistic and stupid and don't look at things. No offense, men. It's true. Okay. The woman's like, let me look up these things a little bit. Let me see what's going on. It's not faulting the woman actually in saying that. You need to do it too. All right. As a guy. And so what are we going to do now, guys? What are we going to do about this problem? Right? Do you at least believe that you're watching this, and maybe throw a comment in? You know, this is not a live one, but throw a comment in. If you do at least believe that this is a real thing, because I know a lot of you guys are like, no, yeah, yes. Okay. This is a real fucking thing. All right. So now what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Okay. Number one thing, what's the easy answer? What is the easy answer? Don't fucking get married. Oh, don't get married. That's the easy answer. Okay, don't get married. Now, I'm going to have the if you do get married part for number 2. So you my religious guys, my religious friends, my military guys, and guys who kind of have to get married for different reasons and have to deal with that. Don't worry, I got your back, okay? But a marriage by the state is not a marriage by covenant. It's not a religious union. It is a contractual agreement between two different entities, and it is not in your favor. The laws in the system is not working in your favor still in 2024. As a man, you are signing up for your own slavery. If you just get married and go, man, it's going to be the greatest. She's the one, bro. She's, I'm going to have her have my babies, right? It's having Tyrone's babies, or maybe Michael's babies from, the sales department. Kevin from sales, Mike from accounting. That's whose babies, hopefully you like kids. Do you like kids? You're going to be liking a lot of different kids. If you pick the wrong woman, so is your bank account. Your bank account's going to love them kids. Don't be a dumbass. Okay. Don't even get married. Go through the ceremony. Nothing wrong with the party. Say the magic words in front of your favorite religious leader. Do it in front of family. Do all the things. And don't get married by the state. Have a legal agreement for when you guys cohabitate that attorneys draw up that are on your terms. If you do get married, and a lot of times living together long enough means that you're going to get married, okay, this is where we get into the second piece of advice, which is do a proper prenup and review every 2 to 3 years. They call it a postnup, right? Have a good attorney and have a clause, for God's sakes, that covers this shit, that absolves you of being forced into obligations if infidelity occurs. And check the laws of the states and countries you're in, because sometimes prenups don't mean that much in certain states. And certain things that you might want in a prenup won't matter. You're not getting married in those states. Go to another state. Seriously. Do not let the government that you are under enslave you voluntarily. That's crazy. You already are beholden to them enough in ways that are not within your will. Okay. In some ways that are against your will. You're already there with the government that you have to deal with. Don't make it worse by volunteering and leaving it up to some woman, for God's sakes. I don't care how good of a woman she is. Why even put that pressure on her? You know what I mean? And she's also human. Even if she's a good woman, she's human, she's flawed, and she's got emotions. And she might make decisions that are not going to be in your best interest. And your interests, understand, the world, society, and the laws view your interest as a man last. You're dead last. All right. The kids will come first. She will come next. In a very distant, fuck you. The pets probably come before you. Very distant third, fourth, fifth place is you, according to the system. All right. So no one's protecting you. You have to protect you. Okay. And join my community at school. We'll help you protect yourself. All right. We'll have these discussions. So all that in there. But you got to do this right paperwork. You got to get the prenup. You got to have the clauses that cover these sorts of things. All right. And don't get married in a country or in a state that is combative to men. All right. That's pretty simple. And then I think the last thing, again, I'm not a political person. I'm really not. And you're welcome here, regardless of your political ideas. And if you disagree with mine, I'm okay with that. All right. I'm here to help people have better relationships and a better mindset, regardless of what their political beliefs are, regardless of their leanings, regardless of what country they're from. All right. So I want to get that out of there. But we can say here to vote accordingly. I think that's safe to say. Ask yourself when you're voting for somebody, whether it's the president of the United States or a local judge, is this person fair? Is this person going to treat other people fairly with their policies? Are they going to do things to protect me with their policies as a man? Do they see me as a utility item, as a tool of enslavement, or do they see me as a sovereign person that needs to be protected? What is their rhetoric? What's their language? Plenty of men and women in office have language that treats men like they're tools, like they're not humans, like they're not sovereign citizens, and really like more like they talk about men as if there's something to be put in shackles or suppressed in some way because they're dangerous. That's how a lot of political leaders view men. Guys and girls who are running for office and in office right now, they talk about men's issues or women's issues as if men are a problem that need to be controlled, suppressed, and used and utilized. That's not treating a man as a sovereign citizen, as a human being. Okay. So you got to ask yourself how is this person treating men in general? And if you're a man, that's you. Okay. That's how they treat you. And that's what their policies are going to do. Are they going to use the system against you because you are a man or of a certain race or of a certain demographic? And I would recommend nobody votes for a person that would do that to any demographic. Really being fair, I think, is the way to go to anybody. So these aren't the only questions, of course, to ask when you are voting for somebody. There's a lot of questions you might want to ask before casting your vote, but these questions definitely shouldn't be left out. Once again, a reminder, click that link. My newsletter is awesome. You'll get that, and it gives you a lot of good articles and information with no spam. And then my community is a place where we can have discussions to help level you up in every aspect of your life. And it's free for you. Hope to see you there. Thanks again for watching.